Hello everyone and welcome to Myrtleknits. Today I'm going to show you how to do a heel flap, heel shaping, and then how to pick up all of the stitches to form the heel and get back to knitting on magic loop like you are here. Because what we're going to do to actually do the heel flap part is we're just going to work on these back stitches only. So normally we'd take the needle out there, come round and start knitting across our front stitches. So we're knitting them round, but we're going to stop here because I've got to the right leg length that I want my sock, and I'm going to just work on these back stitches only to start doing the heel flap. Okay, so I'll take this needle out the front. These front stitches can be held on a stitch holder if you like, or a completely different needle, maybe another DPN, or you can leave them on like we're going to here and then just start knitting. This particular pattern here, and most of my patterns, calls for knitting 3 at the beginning of every round and 3 at the end of every round. This all knits. So this is the purl side, so I'm going to start with knitting 3, and then what I'll do is I'll purl across the rest. This is a 64 stitch sock, so I'm just working on 32 stitches only. So I will meet you when I get to the other end. Okay, so I'm just getting to my last 3 stitches on this purl row, and I'm going to bring my yarn behind and knit 3. I'll drop this needle, turn my work around, and you'll be able to see we've got our knit bumps here and here on either end. And the next row is going to be about the knits, but we're going to do slip stitches, and by doing slip stitches, this helps to reinforce the heel. So as I've said before, what we're going to do is knit the first 3, and now we're going to do our slip 1, knit 1 all the way across. So I've knit my first 3, now I'm going to slip 1, knit 1, slip 1, knit 1, slip 1, knit 1. I'll continue to do that until I get across to the other side. Okay, so we're just getting to the other side. I'm finishing on a knit 1 just before I get to these last 3, and then I will knit those 3. Okay, so those 2 rows are the rows that make up the whole heel flap. Okay, so I've repeated those 2 rows for a total of 15 more times. And then what I do, the last row will be the knit 3 purl, and then to the last 3 and knit 3, which I've done. So now I've got what was the slip stitch row facing me as the next row. But this is where I'm going to stop, because I've now got 16 spaces between all of these knit bumps all the way up. And they're what I'll pick up in between those when it gets up to the picking up stage. Now, the next thing we're going to do is to turn the heel. And to do this, we need to, on a 32 stitch sock, we need to slip 1, which is slip 1 purl ways again, and then we knit 18. 2, 3, 4, 17, 18. And once we get to the end there, I'm going to do a slip, slip, knit. So slip 1 knit ways, slip 1 knit ways, and then knit those 2 together. Like that. Then we're going to knit 1 and turn our work. Okay, for the purl side, we're going to slip 1 as we did before, so that's slip 1 purl ways. And then we're going to purl 7, and that would be the centre of our heel. So 1, 2, 3, these next two together, purl two together, and then purl one, and turn our work. The next row is again, we always start with slipping until we get to the very, very end. So we slip a stitch, and then what we're going to do is we're going to knit to where we did the previous SSK. And you'll be able to see the previous SSK either side of it, because when you spread your stitches out like that, you can see that you've got a gap. And our next SSK that we do is going to be, our slip slip knit, is going to be on the stitch before the gap and the stitch after the gap. So I'm going to knit all the way up to the gap, and then I'm going to slip the one this side of the gap, then the one the other side of the gap, slip that, and then I'm going to knit those two together. Then I'm going to knit one and turn our work again, and you can already see there's a edge that's starting to curve in here. I turn that round, again start of a row, so we'll slip that first stitch, and then we're going to purl to the gap. So where we did our previous purl two together on the previous row, we're going to purl to that, and the one either side of the gap are the ones that we're going to purl together. Okay, either side of the gap, here it is. I'm going to purl those two together, and then purl one and turn the work again. I'm going to continue to do that until all the stitches have been worked, but what I'll do is I'll come back to you just when I get to those last couple of rows so I can show you how to finish off. Okay, I've done most of the heel turn now. I'm just on the last couple of rows. You can see here's my space now where I'm going to do my slip, slip, knit, and then I'll have one here that I can knit, which will bring me to my end of my row. So I've got two stitches after that gap, and I've just done my turn, because this is where I've done my purl two together, purl one, and I've got two stitches at this end. So I'm just going to knit across to the gap again. Okay, and now I'm at the gap again. I'm going to do my slip slip knit, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to just show you the throwing method, because I've done all mine in continental, so this is the English method. So it's just knit, sorry, not knit, slip, slip, and then knit by throwing my yarn round, putting that through, and I'll also knit this last one, throwing my yarn, and turn my work. Now, I'm not going to slip this first stitch now. Now I've worked all of the stitches, this first one I'm going to knit, well, purl. So I've purled that one, and then I'm going to purl right the way across to my gap. I've now reached the gap the other side, and I'm going to purl two together, throw in my yarn, and purl one. And that's all the stitches worked. With the heel shaping. What I'm going to do next is I am just going to knit across these stitches, ready for when I start doing my pickup stitches next. So I'll just knit across these, and I'll meet you when I'm ready to pick those stitches up. Okay, so I've knit across all of those stitches, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slide this needle that's on our front section. We're obviously using this needle to help us knit back and forth across the heel. I'm just going to slide that through across the front of the stitches for now, and then I'm going to start picking up and knitting down this row here. It looks a little bit wobbly because I did already pick those up. My video decided to go on slow motion, so I sounded very weird. Couldn't understand a word of it. Okay, so what we're going to do next is I'm going to pull this needle through so that I've got a little bit more it's a little bit more flexible for me to be able to pick these stitches up in between all of these knit bumps, which we showed earlier. So you've got 2 knit bumps, and within that you've got a flatter piece, and we're just going to pick up a piece of yarn at the edge of that flatter part. So in this first one, if you just pull it apart a bit, you can see I'm going to pick up that little loop there. I'll show you another one. So just pull it apart a bit, and then you can just see a little gap there. That's where I'm going to pick up. So I'll pick up there, and then the 4th, you'll get to see them a little bit easier. You can still just try and pull them apart. Okay, so I've got 4 on there, there's 5, and then I'll do right up until I get to the 16th one, and then I'll come back to you. Okay, so that's 16 stitches picked up all along the heel flap. I'm now going to pick up a couple of strands between here, or strands of stitches. You can pick 1 up or 2. If I pick 2 up, I do knit them together. So I just have a little play around and just make it so I can make it look as neat as possible, and hopefully not have too much of a hole. If there is, they can always be sewn together a little bit later on once the sock is finished. Okay, so I'm going to have a little look, and I'm going to take, I think, that strand there, and then the right hand leg of that stitch underneath that other one, and then using the needle that my front section of stitches are being held on, I'll just knit those 2 together and take that off. So I've now got my 16 picked up stitches, my 20 from my heel, plus the 1 at the end here, just to help close the gap. So what I'm going to do now is, because they're all the ones for the back section of the foot, so the heel and the gusset, which is going to be all our decreases, I'm going to knit across this front 32, but I want to keep them separate because I will then put them on a spare needle until we can get back to our magic loop working. So I'm just going to work across these ones. Again, I'll come back to you once I've done that. So I've worked those front 32 stitches, and what I'm going to do now, because I need to still be able to pick some other stitches up, is I'm just going to place those onto a DPN. You can put them on another set of double pointed needles too, but I'm going to go with a DPN here and just slip them over. So as soon as I've done that, I'll come back to you. Okay, so these stitches have now all been slipped onto this spare needle. My yarn's over here, ready and waiting for me to do the next sort of pick-up stitches. So using the needle I was working on from this side, where I've got my other picked up stitches that I slipped onto the wire, using the needle I was working on, I'm going to come round and I'm going to pick up 2 stitches between this section here, because again this is going to be potentially a gap from around the heel, from where the front section ends and the gusset section begins. So again, I'm just going to play with a couple of stitches and see which ones I might like to pick up. See, I think that one's going to be a little bit, the one straight underneath might be a little bit big, so I might take that strand in between, and also this stitch here. That looks like it'd be okay to me. Now, using the other end of my circular needle, I keep forgetting the circular needle, and throwing my yarn around in between those 2 needles, I'll just knit those 2 together. And this will stay on this needle because it's going to be the back section of the foot, part of the decreases. I always want to keep these front 32 separate. And now what I do is I'm going to pick up and knit between 16 bumps all along this side. So I'll join you again when I get to the top. Okay, I'm now at the top, so I'm just going to pull my wire through again just to give me that little bit more flexibility with that wire. And I'm going to knit all the way round. So I'm back to the beginning of the top, the 20 stitches that I knit across at the end of the heel section. So I'm going to knit all the way round along my pickup stitches to 3 stitches before the end of this needle. I'm just coming up to 3 stitches before the end of this needle. There's 3, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to knit 2 together and knit 1, because these are the start of the decreases for the gusset. There we go, so I'm going to pull that needle all the way through, and all those stitches are sitting on that back needle. Okay, so before knitting these front stitches, so I've just knit round and did my knit 2 together, knit 1. Before knitting across these front 32, I'm going to place them on the other side, the other needle that I haven't just used. This is the one I was working on, and I'm just going to place these stitches onto this needle. So I should just take them off one at a time, and I'll meet you back here again when I've done that. Okay, those stitches have now been put onto the other end of my circular needle, and I have my needle that I'm going to work across with. If I just show, for example, here though, if I go push this needle back in to all of those many stitches at the back, which are going to be decreasing, so I just pull that through from the back. So we slide those onto the stitches. They catch a little bit on these ones. Give them a little twist. There we go. And just pull that down straight. So you're back to your magic loop working. So you've got your yarn at the back there, which you'll bring forward in a moment. Your front needles, your back needle, which I'll take out from there, ready to knit again. This method allows you, I'm just going to be knitting across all of these front ones in a moment, but this method allows you to have your start of the round in the same place, because you start it and it runs down really the side of the sock until you get to the end. But if you go to Earth Tones Gal, they have a video to show you how to pick up just using your circular needle, and what will happen is you'll end up with a new starting point, and that's in the middle of the heel section. It was I enjoyed the video, and it was a very straightforward way of transferring your stitches back onto your magic loop without having to use a spare needle. But a lot of my patterns always have the double pointed needles as a requirement, just to help out with your knitting. So I will continue across here, and I'll come back to you when I'm at the end. I'm just coming to the end of knitting those 32 stitches from the front section of the sock. I'm now going to put my needle through here. You can hear it catching slightly. And then make sure my yarn's in the right place. I will take this needle out of here and work on that first stitch, which was the one that I picked up to close the gap. Knit that, and then do the decrease this side, which is a slip, slip, knit. And I'll keep repeating those decreases until I have 64 stitches in total. So 32 on that front needle and 32 on the back needle. So I'm just going to knit across to 3 stitches before the end of this needle, which will also be the beginning of my round, and I will do my decreases and continue in that way. If you'd like a copy of this sock, it's called Dip Your Toe In. It's a link that I'm going to put just underneath this video. There's a little section that says more, and if you just click on that, it should take you to where you can find this sock. Thank you.